Most people have no idea what's about to happen in Hollywood. Keanu Reeves, the story begins on a quiet morning in Los Angeles. The city was awake but not rushing, and in that stillness, a man walked alone down a narrow street lined with murals. His long coat brushed softly against his legs as he moved. People passing by didn't realize who he was because he carried himself without the noise of fame. It was Keanu Reeves, one of the most respected and humble actors in Hollywood. Keanu had seen more storms in his life than most people could imagine. His childhood was broken by distance, moving from one city to another. He grew up with loss, with loneliness, and with the feeling that sometimes the world gives more pain than joy. Yet he never allowed bitterness to define him. Instead, he learned that kindness, silence, and respect could be stronger than anger. But what he didn't know on that quiet morning was that something unexpected was waiting for him, something that would shake even his calm heart. As he walked past the corner cafe, he heard a voice call his name. It wasn't the usual excited fan or the press. The voice was faint, trembling, and filled with a weight of years. Keanu turned and his eyes fell on a man sitting on the pavement, wrapped in a worn blanket, his hair unkempt, his shoes barely holding together. People walked by quickly, pretending not to notice. But Keanu froze. The man's face carried shadows of the past, but behind those shadows lay something familiar. For a moment, Keanu couldn't move. His chest tightened. He bent down slowly, placing a hand gently on the man's shoulder. The man lifted his head and time seemed to stop. The eyes staring back at Keanu were the same eyes he remembered from long ago. They belonged to his childhood friend, a boy who had once shared dreams, laughter, and promises with him before life separated them. Suddenly, the noise of the street faded. Keanu's heart raced. He whispered softly, almost in disbelief, "Is it really you?" The man gave a weak smile. "It's me, brother." "I didn't think you'd recognize me." Suspense gripped Keanu's soul. How had his friend fallen so far, from the boy with endless dreams to the man surviving on the street? Guilt began to stir inside Keanu. He wondered if he had forgotten his friend while chasing his own life. If maybe he had failed to notice when his friend needed him most. Keanu sat down beside him, ignoring the confused stares of strangers. He didn't care who was watching. What mattered was the man in front of him. The one who had once shared half his sandwich when Keanu had none. The one who had taught him how to dream bigger when the world felt small. His friend coughed. His voice strained. "I used to watch you on screen. I wanted to tell people I knew you, but then I felt shame. Because I lost everything, and you became everything." Those words cut deeply. Keanu closed his eyes, breathing heavily. The pain wasn't just his friend's, it became his own. He realized that the world often hides its harshest truths in plain sight. Fame had lifted him, but his friend had slipped into silence and shadows. But here was the twist. This meeting was not just an accident. It was the start of something larger, something most people in Hollywood had no idea about. Keanu didn't simply see a homeless man. He saw a story that was unfinished, a bond that fate had placed back into his hands. Suspense filled the air as Keanu spoke softly yet firmly. "You're not alone anymore. I won't let this be the end of your story." What Keanu didn't know was that helping his friend would uncover secrets buried deep in the heart of Hollywood. People who once looked untouchable would be exposed, and kindness would prove stronger than power. As the golden sunlight poured over the cracked pavement, Keanu held his friend's hand, unaware that their reunion was about to change everything. Keanu did not move from the pavement for a long time. The city carried on around them. Cars honked, people walked with their heads down, and some even pulled out phones trying to catch a glimpse of the star sitting on the ground. But Keanu did not care about attention. He leaned closer to his old friend and whispered words that seemed to cut through the noise of the city. "Tell me what happened," he asked softly. The man's name was Michael, though in Keanu's memories he was Mikey, the boy who once dared him to climb trees higher than anyone else, the boy who used to laugh so hard he would fall off his chair. But this Mikey was gone. What sat before Keanu was a man aged beyond his years, his shoulders bent, his voice heavy with invisible chains. Michael hesitated, eyes lowered. "You wouldn't understand, Keanu. Your life went up. Mine only went down. Keanu shook his head slowly. No, life doesn't move in one direction forever. It twists, it breaks, it surprises. I want to understand. Michael's hands trembled as he pulled the blanket tighter around him. He spoke of small failures at first. A lost job, an accident that left him unable to work for months, a series of bills piling up. Then came the betrayal of people he once trusted. One mistake led to another, and soon he had no roof, no family by his side. He said he learned how cruel the world could be when it pretends not to see you. As Keanu listened, he felt both guilt and anger. Guilt, because he had lived in comfort while his friend suffered silently, and anger at a society that could let someone so full of life vanish into the cracks. He remembered nights when they were boys, sitting under a broken streetlight, sharing dreams of being actors, musicians, or maybe just men who would never let go of each other. Keanu's eyes grew wet, but he fought to keep his voice steady. Mikey, you're not invisible to me. You never were. Michael's face softened. He tried to smile, but his lips trembled instead. People don't care about men like me anymore. They look right through me. Then let's make them see, Keanu replied with quiet strength. A silence fell between them, but it wasn't empty. It was heavy with the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. Then, like a sharp knife cutting through, a woman's voice broke in. Mr. Reeves, is everything all right? It was a stranger standing nearby with a phone in her hand. She had already recorded part of the moment. More people began gathering, whispering and pointing. Cameras clicked. Keanu knew this was not how he wanted the world to discover his friend. But it was too late. The spark of attention had already been lit, and Hollywood has always been quick to fan sparks into flames. Keanu stood and helped Michael to his feet, ignoring the crowd. He whispered firmly, "Come with me. We don't owe them an explanation. We owe ourselves a chance." Together they walked slowly, with Keanu supporting Michael's weak steps. The crowd followed like a shadow and whispers turned into noise. In just minutes, photos of Keanu Reeves helping a homeless man spread online. At first, people thought it was another act of his kindness, something he had been known for in small, private moments. But soon, sharper eyes recognized Michael. Someone dug into old records. Someone else remembered his face in a small Hollywood project decades ago. The internet began buzzing. Who was this man? And what history did he share with Keanu? By the time they reached Keanu's car, Michael's story had already started leaking into the digital world. But Michael, tired and shaking, didn't know it yet. Inside the car, Keanu handed him a bottle of water. Michael's hands shook so much he spilled some, but Keanu only smiled and steadied the bottle for him. "Why are you doing this?" Michael whispered. "Because friendship doesn't end when life gets hard," Keanu said. "And because I believe there's more to your story than the streets." Michael lowered his head. "You don't know the half of it, Keanu. If people find out everything, they won't forgive me." Keanu leaned closer, his voice firm but gentle. "Then let me carry part of that weight with you." Michael hesitated. His lips parted as if he wanted to speak, but fear silenced him. Instead, he only muttered, "Hollywood isn't what you think it is anymore. There are people there who ruined me. If they know I'm back in sight, they won't stay quiet." Those words planted seeds of suspense in Keanu's heart. He had faced villains on screen, but this felt different. This was real. And something told him that the man sitting beside him wasn't just a forgotten soul. He was someone who carried secrets, powerful enough to shake the walls of Hollywood itself. Keanu looked at him with steady eyes. "Then let the truth come. We'll face it together." What neither of them knew was that the moment captured on that busy street would not only bring Michael back into the light, it would begin a storm that most people in Hollywood were not ready for. The quiet morning was gone. In its place, a story was awakening, and it would not rest until every hidden truth was uncovered. The car rolled through the crowded streets of Los Angeles, but for Keanu and Michael, it felt as if the world outside was fading into background noise. Inside that quiet space, two old friends sat in silence, both carrying questions too heavy for quick answers. Keanu's grip on the wheel was steady, but his heart was not. He glanced at Michael from time to time, seeing exhaustion written across his face, yet there was something else too. Fear. "You can rest at my place tonight," Keanu said gently. We'll figure out the rest later. Michael shook his head weakly. Keanu, I can't. If I step into your world, they'll know I'm alive. They'll come for me. Those words sent a chill through Keanu's veins. He had heard countless stories of betrayal, corruption, and cruelty in Hollywood. But the way Michael said they made it sound darker, more dangerous than gossip or ruined reputations. Who are you talking about? Keanu asked, his voice low. Michael hesitated, his eyes darting toward the passing streets as if shadows were chasing the car. Finally, he whispered, the people who own the stories we never got to tell. The ones who silence anyone who doesn't play their game. Keanu kept his eyes on the road, but inside he felt a storm building. He had always known Hollywood was built on both dreams and lies. But hearing this from someone who once dreamed alongside him made the lies cut deeper. The car pulled into the quiet driveway of Keanu's home, away from cameras and crowds. As they stepped inside, Michael looked around with hesitation, almost ashamed of his dirty shoes on the clean floor. Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder. Don't think about that. You're safe here. For the first time in years, Michael sat on a soft couch. His eyes glistened as he ran his hands over the fabric, whispering, I forgot what it feels like to sit without worrying if someone's going to push me away. Keanu sat across from him. No one's pushing you away here. Tell me the truth, Mikey. Everything. Michael's face darkened. He took a deep breath and began to speak. He told Keanu about the years after they lost touch, how he had tried to chase a small acting career, how he had landed roles in minor projects. He revealed how producers had promised him opportunities but demanded things in return, things that broke his dignity. When he refused, doors closed. When he resisted further, threats followed. I wanted to expose them, Michael said, his voice cracking. I gathered proof. Contracts, letters, recordings. But before I could show anyone, they came for me. They tore everything apart. My reputation, my finances, my life. I was blacklisted before I even had a name worth remembering. Keanu leaned forward, his chest heavy. And the proof? Michael's lips trembled. Hidden, but not lost. If I go near it, they'll know. They'll destroy me again. They'll destroy anyone who stands with me. The room fell into silence. And in that silence, Keanu felt a choice rising before him. He could step away, remain the quiet actor known for kindness, but never for confrontation. Or he could step into the storm and risk everything, not just his image, but his peace. Before Keanu could answer, his phone buzzed. He picked it up, and the screen showed dozens of missed calls, messages, and headlines already spreading online. Keanu Reeves helps homeless man. Who is he? Paparazzi photos were everywhere. Michael's face was already circling social media. Michael froze as Keanu read the news aloud. They know, he whispered, his voice hollow. They'll come faster now. Keanu placed the phone down, his jaw tight. Let them come. We'll be ready. Suspense filled the room like a heavy fog. Michael looked at Keanu, almost in disbelief. You don't understand, Keanu. These aren't just rumors and headlines. These people. They bury stories. They bury people. Keanu's voice was calm but unshaken. And maybe that's why it's time someone stopped them. Michael stared at him, torn between fear and hope. For years he had lived invisible, convinced that his story would die with him. Now here was his childhood friend, one of the most recognizable faces in the world, saying he would stand beside him. Why risk everything for me? Michael asked quietly. Keanu leaned back, his eyes full of both pain and resolve. Because when we were kids, you gave me half your sandwich when I had nothing. You told me I could be more than the world said I was. You saved me back then, Mikey. Maybe now it's my turn to save you. Michael covered his face with his hands, tears escaping through the cracks of his fingers. For the first time in years, he wasn't crying from loneliness. He was crying from the shock of being seen. Truly seen, but neither of them knew that far beyond those quiet walls. Hollywood executives were already whispering. They recognized Michael's face too, and some of them remembered what he once tried to expose. A phone rang in a dark office that night, and a voice said, "He's back, and Reeves is with him." The storm was no longer approaching. It had already begun. The night was colder than usual, and the silence inside Keanu's home felt heavier than any silence he had known before. Michael sat on the couch, staring blankly at the floor, his hands shaking as if the weight of old ghosts had returned. Keanu watched him closely, not as a star watching a stranger, but as a brother unwilling to let go. "We can't stay hidden," Keanu finally said. "If they've seen the pictures, then they're already moving." Michael looked up sharply, fear flashing in his eyes. "You don't know how fast they work, Keanu. One moment you think you're safe, and the next, every door closes. People stop calling, old friends turn away, and the world acts like you never existed. They erase you." Keanu's face tightened. He had faced rejection. He had faced loneliness. But what Michael described was something darker, an intentional silencing. Before he could reply, the phone buzzed again. It wasn't a text this time, but a call from an unknown number. Keanu hesitated, then answered. A cold voice filled the room. "Leave him where you found him, Reeves. Walk away and this ends. Stay and you'll regret it." The line went dead before Keanu could respond. The silence that followed was louder than the voice itself. Michael's breathing grew uneven, his eyes wide with dread. "They know already," Michael whispered. "And they don't make threats they don't intend to keep." Keanu set the phone down slowly, his jaw firm. "Then they don't know me." "I don't walk away." Michael shook his head. "Keanu, this isn't like the roles you play. You can't fight them with kindness." Keanu leaned forward, his voice steady. "Maybe not, but I can fight them with truth. And truth is stronger than fear. Suspense wrapped around the room like chains." Michael lowered his head, torn between gratitude and terror. He wanted to believe in his friend, but he had lived long enough in shadows to know how merciless Hollywood's hidden players could be. Keanu stood and walked to the window. Outside, he noticed a black car parked across the street, its engine off, its lights dimmed. It hadn't moved since they arrived. He said nothing at first, not wanting to alarm Michael, but his instincts told him the battle had already begun. Later that night, as Michael finally drifted into an uneasy sleep on the couch, Keanu sat alone in his study. He opened a notebook where he often wrote his thoughts, lines of poetry and memories of people who touched his life. Now he wrote only one sentence: "The truth must breathe again." The next morning, the storm had grown louder. Newspapers and entertainment outlets plastered the photo of Keanu with Michael on their covers. Some called it another act of Reeves's compassion. Others dug deeper, unearthing fragments of Michael's past roles and his sudden disappearance years ago. The internet buzzed with speculation. Was he silenced? Was he ruined by the system? Keanu turned off the TV and faced Michael. "We don't have much time. Tell me where the proof is." Michael's lips trembled. "You don't understand. If we go after it, they'll come harder. It's locked away, in a storage unit near downtown. I kept it hidden, thinking one day maybe I'd find the courage. But every time I tried, I was followed." Keanu nodded. "Then today we go together." Michael froze. "You'd risk walking into their sight?" Keanu's voice was calm. "They already see me. Now it's time they see you too. Not as a broken man, but as someone who still has a voice." The tension thickened as they drove downtown. Every car behind them felt suspicious. Every glance from the sidewalk carried weight. Michael clutched the old key in his pocket, his hands shaking. When they reached the storage unit, the air felt different, thicker, charged. Michael slid the key into the lock, his breath uneven. As the door creaked open, dust swirled into the light, revealing boxes stacked high. He pulled one box forward and opened it. Inside were old scripts, contracts, and buried beneath them, a small black tape recorder. "This is it," Michael whispered. "The recordings. The names. The deals they wanted me to sign. I kept it all." Keanu picked up the recorder, its weight heavier than any award he had ever held. It wasn't just evidence. It was a life's worth of silence waiting to be broken. But before they could leave, footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. Michael's face went pale. Keanu turned, his body tense. Shadows moved under the thin strip of light beneath the door. Someone was there. Someone had followed them. Keanu placed a finger to his lips, signaling Michael to stay silent. Suspense gripped them both as the doorknob rattled slightly. Voices murmured on the other side. "They can't find us here," Michael whispered, his voice breaking. Keanu looked at him firmly. "Then we'll make sure they don't." He held the recorder tightly in his hand. The truth was in their possession now, but so was danger. What they didn't know was that outside, two men in dark suits waited patiently, already aware of what Michael had hidden. Hollywood's shadows were no longer watching. They were closing in. The air inside the storage unit grew heavier with every second. Michael's hands trembled as he clutched the box of papers, while Keanu stood firm, the recorder tight in his grip. The rattling at the door stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. Silence meant waiting. Silence meant planning. Silence meant danger. Michael whispered, barely able to breathe. "They're here, Keanu. They've always been one step ahead. If they get this recorder, everything ends before it even begins." Keanu kept his eyes on the door. His voice was calm, almost steady enough to slow Michael's panic. "Then they won't get it. We've come too far to hand it over now." The doorknob twisted again, harder this time. The two men outside were testing the lock. Keanu motioned to Michael to stay behind the stacked boxes. He stepped quietly to the side of the door, his tall frame blending into the shadows of the unit. The lock clicked, the door opened, and two men in dark suits stepped inside, their eyes sharp, scanning the dim space. One of them muttered, "He's been here." "We saw him enter." Keanu's jaw tightened. They weren't looking for him. They were looking for Michael. Michael held his breath, crouched low, while Keanu stayed hidden just long enough for the men to step further inside. In one swift motion, he pushed the door closed behind them, trapping them inside. The men spun around, startled. Their eyes widened when they saw who stood in front of them. "Reeves!" one of them hissed. "Walk away." "This isn't your fight!" Keanu didn't move. "When my friend's life was destroyed, it became my fight." For a moment, the men hesitated. This wasn't just any actor standing before them. This was someone who carried a reputation for resilience and respect far beyond the screen. But their orders were clear. "Give us the tape," one demanded, stepping closer. Keanu's eyes didn't blink. "You'll have to go through me first." The tension in the unit was unbearable. Michael's heart pounded so loudly he thought it would give them away. Then suddenly one of the men lunged forward. Keanu sidestepped, his movements calm but sharp, and shoved him back into a stack of boxes. Papers spilled onto the floor like broken promises. The second man reached for Keanu, but Keanu's grip on the recorder never loosened. He pushed past them, grabbed Michael by the arm, and whispered, "Run!" They burst out of the unit. The box clutched to Michael's chest and sprinted down the dim hallway. The men's footsteps thundered behind them, echoing like drums of war. Michael's breath burned in his lungs. His body weak, but Keanu's hand held him steady, pulling him forward with determination. Outside, the streets were alive with neon lights and passing cars, but danger still clung to the night. They ducked into an alley, both of them gasping for air. Michael pressed his back to the wall, clutching the recorder. "They'll never stop. Even if we run, they'll follow us." "They always follow." Keanu leaned close, his voice firm. "Then we stop running. We take the fight where they can't silence it, where the world is watching." Michael's eyes widened. "You mean, go public?" "Yes," Keanu said, his voice steady. "But not with whispers, not with rumors. With truth. Undeniable, unshakable truth. If we release this, they can't erase it. Not this time." Michael's face twisted with doubt. "They control the media, Keanu. They own the headlines. Even if we put it out, they'll spin it. They'll bury it." Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder, looking him directly in the eyes. "Not if the story begins with us. Not if people see it with their own eyes. They'll try to bury it, but truth has a way of clawing its way back to the surface. And when it does, it's stronger than any lie." The word struck Michael deeply. For years he had lived believing his voice no longer mattered, that every attempt to speak would be swallowed by shadows. But sitting there with Keanu by his side, he felt a spark inside him, a spark he thought had long died. Yet even as that spark grew, danger closed in. The black car that had been parked outside Keanu's home earlier now slid slowly down the street, its tinted windows hiding whoever was inside. Michael saw it first, his body tensing. "They've found us again." Keanu turned, his jaw tightening. "Then it's time we stop hiding." Instead of retreating, he stepped out of the alley, his tall frame illuminated by the harsh streetlight. The car slowed to a stop. The window rolled down just enough for a voice to drift out. "You're making a mistake, Reeves. Walk away before this destroys you." Keanu stood firm. "The mistake was thinking you could silence people forever. It ends now." The car drove off into the night, leaving behind a warning sharper than any weapon. Michael sagged against the wall, his legs shaking. "You just painted a target on yourself, Keanu." Keanu turned to him, his eyes unwavering. "Then let them aim. Because the world deserves to know the truth, and I won't let them erase you again." Suspense hung in the air, thick as smoke. The recorder in Michael's hands felt heavier than ever, not just as evidence but as the heartbeat of a story too long buried. They had no idea how violent the pushback would be once they went public. But for the first time, Michael didn't feel alone in the fight. The city around them pulsed with lights, unaware of the storm brewing within its heart. Hollywood's hidden powers were preparing to strike harder than ever. But Keanu and Michael were no longer just two men running. They were about to become the center of a story that could shake the very foundation of Hollywood itself. And once it began, there would be no turning back. The night stretched long and restless. Keanu and Michael sat in the quiet of Keanu's living room, the recorder placed on the table between them like a fragile heart waiting to beat again. Michael's eyes never left it. To him, it was more than proof. It was the last piece of his voice. But he also knew once it was released, there would be no safety left, only exposure. Keanu leaned forward, his hands clasped. "We can't wait any longer. If we do, they'll get to it before us. Tomorrow, we show the world." Michael shook his head. "Tomorrow could destroy you, Keanu. People trust you because you've stayed away from politics and power games. Once you step into this, they'll try to drag your name through the mud." Keanu's gaze was steady. If silence protects the guilty and destroys the innocent, then staying silent is the real shame. "I've lived with loss, Mikey. I've lived with loneliness. But I won't live knowing I turned my back on you, on the truth." Michael's eyes welled with tears. For years, he had begged fate for one person to believe him. Now, fate had given him more than belief. It had given him loyalty. The next day, they didn't go to a studio or a newspaper. Instead, Keanu chose something more powerful: direct connection. He called a small group of independent journalists, people known for refusing to bow to big studios or hidden powers. They gathered in a quiet space, just a camera, a microphone, and the two men ready to tell the truth. When the cameras rolled, Keanu began, not with accusations, but with humility. "This is my friend Michael. The world forgot him, but I didn't. What you're about to hear may shock you, but it's the truth, and truth deserves a place in the light." Michael spoke slowly at first, his voice trembling. He shared his story, the promises made, the contracts twisted, the threats whispered in the dark halls of Hollywood. He revealed how he had been silenced, blacklisted, and pushed to the edge of survival. Then, with shaking hands, he placed the recorder on the table and pressed play. The room filled with voices. Powerful names, cold conversations about using people like disposable tools, recordings of contracts being manipulated, careers threatened, lives destroyed. The truth spilled out like water breaking through a dam. The video went live. Within hours, it spread across the world. Millions watched as Michael's story unfolded beside Keanu's steady presence. Hashtags flooded social media, voices rose in outrage, and silence was no longer an option for those who had buried the truth for so long. But with the outrage came backlash. Hollywood's hidden powers struck back. Articles appeared questioning Michael's credibility. Bots flooded platforms, calling it all lies. Old rumors about Keanu were pulled from the dust, twisted to distract people. Yet the more they tried to bury the story, the louder it grew. Independent journalists dug deeper, uncovering connections that matched Michael's recordings. Actors who had once been afraid began whispering their own stories. Whispers turned into statements, statements into movements. Hollywood shook. Weeks later, Michael walked onto a stage. Not a glamorous red carpet, but a small community event organized to honor those who had been silenced. Keanu stood beside him, his hand on Michael's shoulder. The crowd wasn't filled with stars, but with everyday people, workers, dreamers, fans who believed truth mattered more than profit. Michael's voice was stronger now. "I thought I was erased, but today, I know you can't erase a story that someone else is willing to carry with you. I'm here because my friend refused to let me stay invisible. He showed me that kindness is not weakness. It's the strongest weapon we have. The audience stood, clapping, some with tears streaming down their faces. Keanu lowered his head humbly, letting the applause belong not to him, but to Michael. Later that night, as they sat quietly together, Michael whispered, "I thought I was finished, but you gave me back more than a voice. You gave me back dignity." Keanu looked at him with calm eyes. "You were never finished, Mikey. The world just needed to see you again." The storm had been brutal, the fight costly, but in the end, something larger had been born. A movement. A reminder that even in the heart of Hollywood, where power often hides the truth, kindness and resilience could break the silence. Most people had no idea what was about to happen in Hollywood. Now they did. And nothing would ever be the same again.